Hello, my name is Jack Reed, and today I will be talking to you about the benefits of the history of the camera throughout time. And I'm going to be talking about the modern day camera, so it's going to be before and beyond the modern day camera of today. So, before we had the modern day camera of today, we had early photographic processes. And these photographic processes were used in many different ways, used with a bunch of lights and surfaces of paper trying to store an image so that it will stay on that paper for a longer period amount of time. And after completing this, they created what is called the heliograph. And as you can see, the heliograph is on the right. And this was a really big change in the kind of process of photography because of how it is so ancient and people can see how it's changed so much today. Secondly was the camera obscura, and what they used to use this camera obscura was that they went into a very enclosed room where there was no light, and they cut a very tiny hole, and they'd get this box filled with they'd get this box, and what this box would do is that it would flip whatever the small little hole was looking at from the outside world, and kind of reflect it onto a screen inside the room, so that people could see what was being presented. And then an artist who was in the room would have to sketch that. So basically the picture was in the hands of the artist, or the quality of the artist that was there in the little enclosed box. Secondly was the Kodak. And as you can tell now, Kodak is one of the biggest camera companies in the world. So you can see how long of a process the Kodak has came from. And what the Kodak was it was pretty expensive for its time. It was $25 back in the 1800s, and that was pretty expensive. So what the Kodak had was that it came with a certain amount of rolls with kind of pictures on it, so that you didn't have to buy the rolls after you bought the camera. And after you would take pictures with these rolls, you'd have to go to a store to get the rolls printed out so that you could see your photo and what it looked like in case you wanted to give it to a friend or just keep it. And there was a very big impact with these newer cameras because it kind of showed the people, it kind of showed the people what photography was like, and it kind of gave them interest in what it was, and that kind of tied in. They brought together a lot of people who were very interested in this topic. Economically, it was pretty good for its time because of how small the cameras were in comparison to a lot of bigger things that were back in time that are today very small. Secondly, through, and the modern camera today is probably a Kodak or a Canon, and it ranges from $100 to $1,000. Usually the ones above that are very expensive but take very high quality photos. And the impacts upon this are that it is become very portable for the outside world to bring, and also has brought a lot of people together. There are many classes that fixate on photography now today in the schools, and there's a very big difference between photography today and photography back then because of how modernized it's become. Everyone takes photos on a daily basis through Snapchat and other social medias, and it's just crazy how many people use a camera today, especially in their iPhones, which is a use of everyone pretty much every single day. And lastly, beyond. So as you can see on the right, this is a future prototype, and no one knows what the impacts will be because obviously it is in the future, but many people can kind of infer what's going to happen. The cameras are more likely to become more smaller, which would provide a very good economical impact and environmental impact because the cameras aren't as big, and they will probably be more easier to get a hold of, which will lead to more photos being taken, more people coming together because of the love of photos. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and I hope you learned something about the history of the camera.